So if you listen, you may hear crows, and you'll probably hear some bird song. But I live under trees in the woods. And, of course, when I grew up, I lived further in the woods. The wood, as Carter would call it. But I lived in a small town in southern Arkansas called Fountain Hill. I lived in suburbial Fountain Hill. And what that means is that I was about 3 miles outside of a small 195-person town on a farm. And I grew up there, and I grew up around rivers, which in the area that I lived, there was just about like in Delphi. There were 3, major rivers or bayous running right through the area in which I live, which is the Bayou Bartholomew, which is the longest bayou in the United States of America. And then there's the Ouachita River and the Saline River. And all those years that I grew up, the first 20 years of my life, we spent hunting and, riding various types of ATVs and just walking and mostly walking. You get a shotgun, you get a rifle, a four-wheel drive. It's like a Hank Williams Jr. song. You go into the woods and you just you spend time, whichever kind of new area you go into. Well, a bayou is a little bit different than the Ouachita, and the Ouachita is a little bit different than the Saline. And you go in these areas and you just go. You're up there in hills, because anytime you have water, you have rolling hills, because it all goes downhill, typically in a uniform fashion, typically rolling type scenario. You have a high side and a low side. And, once you've been in that type of area and you grew up in around that type of scenario, you could drop you anywhere in the world in that type scenario. And you could drop me in that scenario for sure, because I grew up like that. And give me a stick about 4 feet long, 5 feet long, 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, good strong stick that won't break if I hit something, and just tell me to walk 5 or 10 miles. And then in my brain, I'll start developing a lay of the land. I'll start understanding it. I'll start being able to maneuver through real quick, because I've had to do it. And there's no quitting. You can't, it's kind of like the scenario, you can't get out of the car halfway through a NASCAR race. You got to keep on going. You got to keep on, you got to get out. You got to survive. You got to live. So the point of what I'm trying to say right now is that people say, well, he's got to be from Delphi. This bridge guy's got to be from Delphi. He doesn't have to be from Delphi. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that you don't have to be from Delphi to be there and to carry out what this guy carried out. You could be very new to the area. You could be a day there. You could be at that moment there. You could be a truck driver that stopped somewhere. You don't have to have these elaborate plans, not if you're good with moving around. Of course, I grew up in a military family. The very first exposures I had to the world was a dad that was a Vietnam veteran who lived on the side of a mountain in Vietnam for 2 years, on the side of a mountain attached to a rope so he wouldn't roll down the hill during the middle of the night. Sleeping bags attached to ropes. So, the type of the world that some people live in versus the type of world that other people live in is different. If you grew up out in the country, if you grew up around hills and rivers and valleys, and if you grew up around all that, you don't have to be a native of Delphi to commit the murders and get out of there quick. Like a lot of people that really don't know what that means, what it means to grow up like that. He has to be from there. No, son, he does not have to be from there. All he has to be is from a place like that. And then he can do anything he wants to there, because he knows he can do it. He's done it before. He's climbed through these same type scenarios many times before. Anyway, just a Delphi moment, something to think about.